Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life. Hello, welcome back to another episode of Next to Madison. On today's episode, we are talking about binge eating. A lot of people aren't necessarily sure what that means exactly, or if it's tied to something else, or if it's just binge eating. We're at home most of the time with COVID, and comfort food is a good thing. A lot of people have kind of put on a couple pounds, which is fine. You know, just get out there and get fresh air and get that vitamin D, or the D in the bedroom, whatever floats your boat. But no, the vitamin D is the one that kills the COVID, not the D in the bedroom. But the D in the bedroom is probably good too. But yeah, so we're going to be talking about binge eating. I know I have been binge eating with the holidays here, as just nonstop desserts and whatever I can get my hands on, and sugar. I almost feel like, Hunter Biden and a crack den in China. Too soon? Too soon, maybe. But with that being said, I want to go ahead and bring on my guest today. She is the author of a book that will be available at the first of the year. It is called Binge Sprint, and it is about her journey of being a binge eater and how she recovered and is on a very healthy and successful path. So with that being said, I'm going to bring on my guest, Naomi Joseph. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I am amazing, and I'm so excited to be here. You have no idea. I'm like, oh my God. I was telling people, I'm going to be speaking to Madison, and I'm going to be next to Madison. And she's this woman, and she's fabulous, and she's funny, and she's gorgeous, and she's intelligent, and she's the whole package. And I'm just so thrilled to be here. I'm a huge fan, and I am really excited to speak to you today.
Yeah, thank you. Well, likewise, I'm excited that you came on to kind of share your journey with myself and all the listeners. So let's go ahead and get into what exactly is binge eating.
So I'm so glad that you asked that, because I know everybody has, and isn't it so true? Everybody has like the weirdest relationship with food, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's got like their, we call it in Jewish, their mishigas, everybody's got like their little, I eat this, I don't eat that. And people are so particular about their food, and how could you serve me that? Or how could you not taste my cake? And everybody has like this such crazy hangups about food. And every single person that I've spoken to about this, I say, yes, it's about my 40-year journey through binge eating and recovery. And they say, oh, that's for me. I'm a binge eater. But that's why your question is so good, because people don't really know what binge eating is. They just think that it's, oh, I'm having cake now, or, oh, the holidays, I had so much, I binged,
Right, because it's kind of like, I remember I was at, this week I was at a grocery store, and there was these chips, like edamame, the dried edamame with the flavors on them, I think they are, or the snap peas.
Okay.
And there was a ranch flavor, and I grabbed it to put it in my cart, and I go, because I'm going to eat the whole bag if I do this. Like, I can't have a few, like the whole bag is going down my pie hole. So I'm like, so I put it back. But that's not necessarily binge eating now.
No, it certainly isn't. And what you did was really healthy. You knew yourself. You were aware. Awareness is always the first step. And you said, I am not bringing this home. I'm not having this in my house, or else I'm going to see it on my hips. And I'm in Colorado now, and there could be a bikini in my near future. So what am I doing? But binge eating is a completely different thing. So I'm going to tell you what it looks like, and then I'm going to talk to you sort of about the backstory and why people develop this. So what binge eating really is when people sit and they will eat very, very, very large quantities of food that are very high in calories and don't need to taste good. They are usually in a fog and don't really even know what they're eating, and they're not hungry. but it's just all going down. And there are a lot of underlying feelings with that, feelings of low self-worth, feelings of low self-esteem, feelings of being out of control, and a whole host of other things. And it's an addiction, just like drugs or sex or porn or alcohol or shopping or whatever, insert issue here.
Yes.
It's sort of the same thing. So if there were a camera in my kitchen, this is what it would show. So I would come into my kitchen and you would see my expression. It's just sort of like glazed over, and I look like I'm searching for something, and then all of a sudden the cabinets start opening, and it's like the weirdest concoctions. It's anything that's caloric. So it could be frozen waffles with cream cheese that expired 2 weeks ago. It could be just like frozen stale hot dog buns with honey on it, my kids snacks dipped in almond butter, like whatever it is. And then what it is you're looking for something to like stabilize you. It's almost like trying to find something that's going to give you, I call it, using cake as fortitude. It's trying to find something that's going to like give you that boost that you need, like a drug. It's sort of like, stick the needle in me sort
Yeah.
of a thing. And then or something to help transition you, like using food for whatever you need to use it for. But then what happens is, this happens a lot in binge eating, is that you're looking for that food that's going to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
But there's no food that exists on this earth that will ever make it better. So then you just keep eating because you keep trying to find the food that's going to make it better, but the food doesn't exist.
So is
And
it
then,
just high calorie food?
so it depends. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because binge eaters also have that underlying, you're not good enough. So it's almost like punishment. It's like, you don't deserve to look good. You don't deserve to. So it's like high caloric. And then once you're done, you don't even remember what you ate, but then there's all these crumbs and wrappers that are evidence. And
My
then,
gosh.
then you're just like, okay, so, and some people may be listening to me and may be thinking, that girl's got nothing on me. You should see what I do. And some girls may be thinking, wow, that made me feel a lot better because I'm not as bad as she is.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's a relatable factor, and we all go through like our own issues. But with this particular thing that we're talking about, it's just the binging. So there's no purging involved in this.
So no, I was never a purger.
Right.
I tried it in like middle school, but like I cry when I throw up. And then I think I tried anorexia. That lasted till lunch. So
Right.
like not my
Right.
thing.
I know that's how I am with fasting. Everyone's like, you should fast. It's really good for you. And I was like, okay, this is a great idea. And I get up and I'm ready. And by 11 o'clock, I'm like, tomorrow. I'm like, I'm hungry. And somebody's like, just identify that you're hungry. And I'm like, yeah, that's when I eat. Isn't it?
Coffee, please.
Yeah, right, exactly. But what percentage of our population do you think are binge eaters?
So there is a record, 2.8 million people in the United States
Oh my, wow.
documented binge eaters. And these are just the people that have come forward.
So when they come forward, who do they go to? A therapist?
Right. So they'll go seek help, or so there's therapists, there's different programs, there's Overeaters Anonymous and other fabulous, wonderful organizations that are really there to help people. So it's usually through those. And there's organizations, just for overeaters and for bingers and eating disorders.
Yeah.
So that's how they're registered. But again, the people don't come forward because it's shameful.
Well, yes, I could see that, but also I think a lot of people don't see it as an eating disorder. I don't think I did at first because I thought, well, an eating disorder is just when you're too skinny, you know,
Right.
like
It was so popular in the 80s, remember?
to be
So
skinny or to,
no, anorexia in the 80s and the 90s, it was like a thing.
oh,
It was a lot of the stars were going through it, and was it's much less glamorous. And I don't mean to I am I am not saying anything, that is glamorous about anorexia or something, but what I'm saying, I'm not, you
yeah,
know,
no, right. Because, well,
but
everyone wants to be skinny and they want to fit into those
right,
sexy clothes.
right.
But yeah, in the, I mean, I was a little kid in the 80s, but like in the 90s, it was, you would see these stars and they were super, super skinny. And then it was giving these messages to our youth, which at the time that was like, oh, you have to be super, super skinny. When it's like, that is so bad for you. You need to be fit, not skinny, fit, whatever that is for your body type. So it's good that we have all these muscle women now.
Yes, it certainly is.
So I want to hear about your journey with this, because obviously it was very impactful and it lasted a while, enough for you to be writing a book about it. So
Yeah.
how did it kind of start for you?
So it was sort of for, there's two parts that I want to talk about how it started. The
Okay.
first part is there's it's really through your genes. It has to do with epigenetics and being handed down. And there's a lot of eating disorders in my community, which is the Eastern European Jewish community. A lot of people who were through World War II,
Mm-hmm.
through the Holocaust, and were in concentration camps. There's a lot of eating disorders with that. And
Wow.
I had, relatives that unfortunately got stuck in Europe. And my dad, um, his relatives he was born on the Lower East Side to, European immigrants.
Wow.
And when my dad ate, and still does, he's like he's a fast eater. Like he is the hands down Olympic gold medalist of fast eating. Like I swear, it's like behind his chair, if there was like, I don't know, like a herd of antelopes being chased by a lion, and he had to eat, and if he didn't finish by the time the lions pounced on the antelopes, bam, like, like that would be their fate. Like it was almost like a race, like he had saved the universe by eating fast or something. It was crazy.
Yeah.
But and
Wow.
he would eat with his hand around his plate like this.
It was almost like dogs have this issue. If they didn't get enough in like the litter, if they were fighting for food, but you don't really hear it with humans. So this is
Depends how
the
you
first
grew
time I'm
up.
hearing it. Wow. So I had no idea that this was part of kind of like a culture in the genes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of eating disorders in my culture. And then the how it really started for me was I was a latchkey kid. I got
A what?
a latchkey kid. It means when you're little, you get your, like those kids that wore their key to their house around their neck.
Uh-huh.
So for my 8th birthday, I got a key to my house, and I had to let myself in the house the next day because my mom was going to be working. And which I was 7 the day before, it
Yeah.
was
Wow.
dark out. I mean, this was the 70s. It was like a whole different generation.
Yeah.
And I remember coming home, and it was dark, and I was scared out of my mind. But I didn't want to let my mom down because I knew that she had to work, and my dad was at work, and my sisters were like in high school. They came home later. I have 2 sisters that are close in age that are older than me.
Okay.
And I was just trying to find something that would calm myself down. And before I knew it, I went through a whole bowl of cereal, like a whole box of it, like a new box, Captain Crunch.
Oh my goodness.
And I remember and it became this habit that I would use food to help me when I was nervous, when I, had to keep it together, when I didn't know what to do and I didn't know where to turn and I was like feeling like this. That was my thing that I went for. And, it's kind of like the good girl's drug
Yeah.
because
Yeah, 'cause
there's nothing.
as a kid, it sounds like it started off as, for you, it was comfort, but it was like almost like a kid's dream as well, like a whole box of Captain Crunch. So you
It
probably
was,
didn't realize what exactly it was.
I didn't know, but it was, and then it creates this whole cycle because you don't know what to do. It's there to calm you. And then it's something, it fills all the criteria of a binge eater because binge eaters are usually overachievers. So you're like accomplishing something, you're doing something that's constructive, you have to eat, right?
Well, yeah.
Um, and, I was eating a meal by myself when I was 8. So that was like grown up.
Uh-huh.
And, and then you can, like, it gets you together, it calms you down. Really what it's doing is it's putting you in like a sugar coma, but you do
Yeah.
feel calmer, and then you could go on and sort of do what you need to do.
Interesting. So from there, where did it go?
So then it just sort of, um, that became my coping mechanism.
And so when did your parents kind of realize what was happening?
I don't think my parents did realize what was happening. My parents, my parents were born in the 1930s and,
Uh,
in New York, and it was during the war and the Great Depression and Prohibition,
yeah.
and they were children of immigrants. And if you had a roof over your head and food on your table and clothes on your back, there was nothing to discuss. They didn't talk about feelings or,
Yes, right. It was that generation.
not that they didn't care, not that they
Right.
didn't love me, not that they didn't, but this was not their forte. They're from a generation where you you rolled up your sleeves and you got it done. You didn't talk about it. You just did what you needed to do. Like my mom grew up, she lost her parents. They were in their 40s. I mean,
Oh,
her bed was a pull-out couch in the living room, and her closet was a hook on the back of the door, and she didn't go to college, so she could take care of her little sister. And my dad, never really had a childhood. He worked all the time, and he was a singer, and he was always on stage, and he didn't play, and he gave up, whatever he needed to give up to, because his parents said, this is what you're doing. And
yeah.
you just, and they didn't talk about it. They made it sound like fun, even though it was probably not, you
Yeah.
know,
No, that
but
makes sense. So they
so they
didn't
don't.
realize what was going on, but were you putting on weight?
So yes, so my two older sisters were rail thin, like rail thin.
Okay.
I wore my sister wore this outfit in her 8th grade class picture, and I
Mhm.
wore it in my 3rd grade class picture.
Oh, wow.
So I was, and I didn't even look like I was from the same family. They both have like big brown eyes and curly black hair. Like I don't look like them at all, at all. So funny that we're in the same family, but
Yeah.
um,
It happens. Some say it's the
um,
mailman, some just say, well, it's a different gene.
and then my nickname in my house was Fatty.
Oh no. Oh, so it's like to add, poison to the potion. My gosh.
Not that they thought it was funny. It wasn't like people weren't aware. It wasn't like today. It was just like but then it kind of stuck, and it became my identity.
Well, right, because I think people, probably if they witnessed you doing this, like, oh, she's just a growing kid. She's hungry. Kids eat. That's what they do. But I think, I'm glad you're kind of diving into this because I think a lot of people think binge eating is just like, oh, what you do when your kids bring home their Halloween buckets and they go to bed at night, or
Right.
you had a holiday cooking, baking, or cookie party where you go and you decorate them, and or Thanksgiving and there's leftovers. Like people are thinking that's binge eating, but once in a while going overboard is okay. So that's not the type of binge eating that Naomi is talking about, just so you guys know, because when I came in I was like, oh, binge eating, I've been doing that all week, but it's like No, it's
No,
really
that's not what it
people.
is. And then
Yeah,
it does become part of your identity. Like who, like with you, like when, like, were you ever labeled, oh, she's funny, she's the funny girl,
yeah,
like, were you ever, right? And then it kind of stuck and it becomes,
yeah, absolutely, of course. So it kind of becomes part of that. So how did that like it must have made you feel terrible though to be called funny is good, but like what they were calling you is not nice.
it was horrible. And it made me like feel, and that also went on that whole like not good enough. And then what happens is you start separating yourself from people. Like, you're not good enough, you're not as good as they are because of what you do, because of your binge eating, and like you're heavier, so you don't really deserve to be with them. So like you
Oh my
sort of shy away from the more popular groups, you shy away, you don't think you're good enough to join, you know particular groups of friends, or that you don't belong. And then you start comparing yourself. And I think that comparison is the craziest thing when people compare themselves to other people, because
yeah.
that really makes you separate yourself. Because what happens is that there you are going along in your life, and then you see people flying by on Instagram and flying by on Facebook, and they look so fabulous, and their lives are so amazing. And then, you're like, wow, what are they doing? And then you start to try and do what they're doing, but
Uh-huh.
you're not realizing that they can do that because they're them. And there's only one them. Like, you need to go back to doing what you know how to do well. But then you stop doing what you're doing, and then you try and do what they're doing. And then your level of success, wherever you are in your life,
Yeah.
good. And then all of a sudden there's like a canyon between the two of you guys, because you're not being your authentic self. And then you just feel
Yeah.
more, then you just end up separating yourself more from people because you're not feeling worthy. And that's the whole, this is how a binge eater thinks. This is like the whole way of thinking that accompanies the binge not being good enough. Um, all the beautiful things aren't for me. Looking good isn't for me.
Oh my
Being beautiful
gosh.
isn't for me. It's all of this. Then so many people really, they really live like this is really what it is. This is all the whole underlying part of it.
So I'm wondering if like social media, there's a lot of problems with social media. There's some good things, but the downside they've realized is more it's more negative because you are seeing people post these beautiful photos and everyone and their mom should realize that these photos are your best moments. I don't post on Instagram when I'm buying tampons at the drugstore. That doesn't seem fun. I think I'm going to start. But you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Or like no makeup or just woken up. It's like the angle. I'm not a big selfie person, but I've seen my friends take selfies and I'm like, you would think you had the worst face you've ever seen, the way you took those and you angled and I'm like, you're beautiful as is. Take the damn photo and be done with it. But no, and then it's there. So all the stuff you see on social media, like don't compare yourself because it's fake. Like it's absolutely
100%.
fake. You know what
Oh
I
my
mean?
God. I have a friend who's my age. I
Uh-huh.
don't know what filter she's using, but there's not
Oh, that's the
one
filter
line
right
on
now.
her face. I'm like, who is that? I look
Some of them are
like,
yeah, some of them are a little too obvious and it's like guys, no, 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 no. And it's like good to age. But I'm wondering if it's led to things like, binge eating. I know it's led to depression and
you know,
anxiety.
I,
Sure.
I mean, I think with social media that it's a fine line. Like, and it has to do with the person that it's coming from, because, or who's the viewer, because the person, the Instagram model that is putting themselves out there, and they look stunning, and they've worked so hard, and they have these beautiful muscles, and they're in a bikini. It's like, I'm looking at it, and not in a comparison way. I'm looking at it like, oh my God, look how gorgeous she is. Look what an example. That's so, like, to have somebody, a role model like that, That's beautiful. And somebody else could look at the same picture and say, "Oh my God," and I feel terrible about myself. And, but
Yeah.
so that person shouldn't be able to be proud and look, it has to, there's got to be like a give and take and like an understanding when you're the viewer, what
Yes.
you're looking at and how to look at that.
Right. People pay a lot of money to get those photos done in that Photoshop. So yeah, just, I think the social media comparison started with uh, families or houses. People would post photos of their family and people that maybe hadn't met the right person or didn't have a family. And then now it's become a whole thing where it's like body, face, lips, like, oh my, it's just, it's just been a crazy thing. So the good news is no social media existed when you were going through this.
Oh, thank God.
Right, because it would have probably just made it worse. So you were going through this. When did you realize, okay, I've got an issue, I need to stop and get help?
Maybe about 6 years ago.
What?
Maybe about 6 years ago.
Like, I'm not going to ask you your age because that's not appropriate.
Well, it was actually my birthday on election day. It was 2 years ago.
Oh,
Yeah,
happy
so I'm
belated
50,
birthday.
I'm 52. I'm 52.
Well, you look fabulous. And you guys,
Thank
we
you.
have these episodes on YouTube as well. I know not a lot of people go to the YouTube channel, but if you want to see the video and you want to see Naomi's beautiful face and how you look amazing for 52, my good God,
Thank
um,
you.
go check it out on YouTube as well. So, yeah, you can see everything. But that's so 6 years ago.
Yeah. And it was only because I was, um,
So
you know how
46. So you pretty much were heavy from 8 to 46. Is that what you're saying?
so I went through a lot of different stages.
Okay.
Um, so binge eaters are also, like I was saying before, they're overachievers. So
Okay.
you go through, when you're a binge eater, you go through a lot of these, especially people who don't purge. Okay, people who don't throw up like me.
Okay.
Um, I did something. I called it exercise bulimia, which I never knew was an actual term. So apparently, I can't take credit for it because somebody else did already. Um, but so in college, I was on the swim team,
Mm-hmm.
which, I mean, for me to get into a bathing suit, like I really wanted to lose weight, like I didn't care.
Right.
And I did distance because I figured that would burn more calories.
Oh,
So,
totally.
and I would spend my whole day like working out. I would, miss parties or turn down dates to go to boot camp. That like was so lame. Um,
Wow.
but so I was, if so, a lot of people who I say, yes, my journey through binge eating, they'll say, but you were never heavy. But for me, I'm a pretty small person. I'm like 5'2" and change, and I'm proportioned. Like I don't gain weight in one area. It's just sort of like even all around.
Okay.
So I can be up and down 30 pounds, and depending upon how I dress, you can't really tell.
Oh,
It
wow.
doesn't. I can hide it very well. So, but when you see me, it's really, you can tell how I'm doing. You can just look at me and see what
Yeah.
my dress size is, and either say, "Wow, you're doing so great," or "How can I help?" You know.
Oh, because you said 30 pounds. I mean, that's on your frame because I'm the same size. I put on 5 pounds and it pops up right on my face.
Right. It's a difference between like a 2 and a 10.
Wow. So, okay. So you were going through this. So you were exercising all the time to kind of keep a two,
Right.
it sounds
Right.
like.
I don't
But
think I was ever a 2, maybe a 4.
okay,
My size, like for my size, when I'm a 4, like
yes,
that's my size.
it's an ideal size.
For,
Yeah.
well, for being a small person, for being a short,
It,
like for being a smaller person, it's a good size.
right, exactly. Because I think the average woman is a 6 or an 8, maybe.
Yeah, well, the average woman's like 5'4" or 5'5".
Yeah, exactly. So we've got yeah, because on
Right.
smaller frames that
Mhm.
kind of happens. So and because you were overcompensating exercise wise to offset the binge eating on your figure, you missed out on a lot of joyous moments.
Yes.
And that happens to a lot of people. I think that maybe be listening to this and maybe they're on the treadmill, and that's great. Keep working out. But
Keep on the treadmill.
yes, keep on the treadmill, elliptical, everything. But how much are you doing it? If you're
Right.
working out 7 days a week for 2 hours a day, you might have an issue. Like you need that rest day. You need, 45 minutes is 45 to an hour is all you need. But so this was pretty much your whole life.
This was my entire life. And um, what happened when I was about 10 years ago, I started a business.
Mm-hmm.
I work full time. I'm a speech therapist for the New York City Department of Education.
Oh, no.
And yeah, I love it. I love what I do.
Okay, good.
And it's so funny because my specialty happens to be feeding and swallowing disorders. So as a speech therapist,
Interesting. So maybe it
happened.
kind of led you on your journey a little bit in a weird roundabout
I
way.
think it had a tremendous impact on every area of my life.
Yeah. So, okay, so basically your entire life you were kind of living like this. And when did you just say enough is enough? 6 years ago. What was that breaking aha moment for you?
So I was working. I was working now I was working full time. My
Mm-hmm.
kids was probably maybe a little longer ago. Maybe it was 7 years, and my kids were smaller.
Okay.
And I was really like gunning for like this last promotion in my business. And I was coming home from an event. It was very late at night. And I had been feeling like heart palpitations.
Okay.
But I hadn't taken care of it. And I was driving home and it was like loud. And I looked at my watch and it was, just right before midnight. And I said, I was like, when I was loath to go get myself checked out in like, not in urgent care, they have those urgent care centers.
Yeah.
So I was loath to go because I was like, oh, it's gonna be like an hour less sleep. And I was like hardly sleeping because, again, when you're a binge eater and you're an overachiever, you don't allow yourself to sleep or, have good things because work is for you. The joy isn't for you. Rest isn't for you. Work is for you. Looking good isn't for you. This is like, you're like a workhorse. Like that's what you do. And so I was like, I can't take this. I got to get myself checked out. Like I was really afraid. Like I'm like, I, this is, I need to go now. Or like,
Yeah,
I don't even want to think about what could happen.
absolutely.
So I went in I went in to get myself, whatever, they put all these electrodes all over. I remember I went into the place and there was this girl with like a headset on and she's like chewing gum and looking at her phone. I'm like, hi. She didn't look up at me. And I'm like, I'm having like heart palpitations. Oh, she was looking up at me now. Well, all of a sudden I'm like flying into this room. They're putting electrodes all over me. And and there was like these, and I'm on this thing, and then it was winter, and there's like these freezing cold stickies all over me, and they're like, honestly, I was just so happy to be laying down. I didn't even care
Yeah.
what the
That's great, right? You're like, I can finally rest.
So I remember this doctor came in, and she had like that voice with that island lilt in it, and she was like so soothing and calming, like this, especially as a speech therapist. Accents like do different things to me.
Okay.
And she said to me, and I thought she was going to say, well, this is, people are very medical. And I remember she sat down and she held my hand and she said, when was the last time you slept through a full night? And she said, when was the last time you had a decent meal?
Oh,
And she said, your heart is fine. She said, you're giving yourself panic attacks.
just because everything else in your life seemed great. Your work
And it
was
was great.
your
Everything in
family.
myself everything was.
So it was this overcompensation of work that was just burning you to the core. And
Because
part of that binging, you were almost binging on work.
I was binging on food, and I was binging, like I would come into my house on a phone call, still with my coat on, because I couldn't even take my coat off because I was so uncomfortable in my skin. I would like keep my coat on. And I would start opening the cabinets like while I'm on the thing, like trying to stabilize myself to like get through this next thing. And my business is so joyous, and is to this day. It's so joyous, and it's so beautiful. But I used it as a springboard to try and prove myself in yet another area to prove my worth.
Okay.
So I needed to be super successful so that I could prove my worth. But you at the same time running yourself into the grounds,
So does the
demolish.
lack of self-worth and not feeling good enough come from the binge eating, or does the binge eating start because of the lack of self-worth?
That's such a good question.
Because I
And
guess it could be different for a lot of people, but at 8 years old, you were maybe feeling alone or panicked, but you weren't feeling unworthy because you were 8 years old. So
I
it
don't know.
started differently, but then it continued on of that, because you know how people go through where they don't want to take any pictures because maybe they've put on some weight, and or they have a zit, or just something's happened in their life where they feel insecure and things like that. But yeah, it's interesting where as you're saying this, I can relate a little bit to the kind of overworking thing. For so many years of my life, I would work and work and work, and everything else really got put on hold. All the vacations could get put on hold, the relationship could get put on hold, because I thought in my mind, mine was different. It wasn't food, it was money, right? I didn't feel good enough because I didn't have lots of money. And I thought, well, when I have lots of money, people will like me and they will accept me. And, I had lots of friends, but I figured nobody wanted to date me. I was an up and coming artist and I wasn't rich. And so I kept myself out of the dating pool. So it's like the binging seems like it can relate to so many things. It's not just food, but even like binging on work because you don't feel good enough. Because what you're saying is, I'm sitting here going, it wasn't food for me, it was work. Because I thought nobody would love me until I was rich. And I suffered this a long time. And now I'm like, I'm going to lie and tell everybody I'm poor until I know they love me. So it's totally, now it's switched. I'm going to drive a cheap car. It's going to be great.
But and everybody has their insecurity, and it depends, I think, where you come from and what your family stood for. Money doesn't grow on trees, and shut off the lights. Air conditioning, the great outdoors. Like, what do you?
Yeah, or another one too. I remember my grandmother. I mean, she's amazing, but being, when we would go over to people's houses that were very wealthy, it was, do you know how to eat properly? And do you know how to do this? And it was almost like she didn't mean it, but she was from that generation where it was almost like I wasn't good enough and I had to be on my best behavior so I could fit into the caliber of these people. And that resonated because I'm like, oh, everybody will love me and think I'm great when I have tons of money. So maybe it came from that.
It's very interesting. My dad, who's from that generation that your grandmother's from,
Mm-hmm.
he would say things talking about wealthy people in our neighborhood, and he will say they can go on vacations or whatever, but we don't do that. Or they, oh sure, they can sit next to this person, but we don't because we aren't them. Meaning, and I grew up thinking that I was a we, but then when I started seeing success in my life, all of a sudden I was a they, and it was like, whoa. It was just a whole like I felt like my soul was being ripped out of my body because it was, my whole identity was like shot to hell.
Right. So it must have been like a good, like that good feeling too. But
But it was weird. No, it was weird. It's like, who am I?
oh,
Right? Don't you like, did you ever go through that? Like, what?
well, I mean, I feel very blessed that I was able to get with the right therapist and do the right self-help. So like I was able to shake that not good enough while I was still piss poor. So I got, so my identity hasn't changed now. I feel like I'm going to be the cheapest person ever. I'd be like, that Chanel bag, that could be earning so much more money in the market. What a waste of money. Like before I'd be like, Chanel bag, look at me. And now I'm like, what a waste of money. No, no, no. Put it in the bank.
It's so funny, like when you have goals, all of a sudden you see things so differently. When you don't have to prove who you are,
Life
you
becomes
can.
amazing. Like amazing. Like I don't, and it definitely, but let's go back to your journey. So what I'm getting out of this is like you were binge eating, then you were overcompensating with exercise to stay fit. So you were missing out on certain things, and then you were binge eating, but you were now successful because you're an overachiever, which is a binger. But binging seems to me like it relates to all different areas of our lives, like where it's not
Sure.
just food, but it's this disorder with multiple facets, anything that's done to extreme.
Anything that's done to an extreme, and anything that you use as a drug, anything that you use as a drug, anything that you use to calm you. So
So
it could be,
alcohol could be one. I mean, a lot of people are marijuana, you know.
right. So it could be drugs, it could be alcohol, it could be sex, it could be porn, it could be shopping, it could be, I mean, anything that you're addicted to. It's any kind of addiction that you need to, like I was saying before, stick the proverbial needle in your vein
Yeah.
so that you can, and then you can move on. It stabilizes you to move on. It helps you transition from one thing to another. So just an example for anyone would be like let's say you were sitting at your computer, okay, and you were given this like piece of work that you didn't want to necessarily do right now, and you're sitting there and you're doing it, and all of a sudden, eating the last ice cream bar or baking cookies sounds like an amazing idea. So you get up and it's just, I need to do that. And then like again, using cake as fortitude, and then you could come back and get it done.
Right. You sound like a cigarette smoker. It is what it sounds like almost, because it's like, oh, I got to get my fix, or I'm going to work until I can have that next fix. I mean, I smoked for a lot of years, and it was one of those, I hid it from people a lot, and then I wouldn't hide it from certain people, but it was like you would work until you got that fix.
Right.
And that's kind of
Right.
what it was. So it was like the food for you. So if
So
somebody's had listening and they're having binging, whether it's smoking, drinking, exercise, eating, shopping, any of these, because they're all related in some way, how do you stop, identify it, and start working towards not
yes.
binging anything?
So the ultimate goal, what recovery is,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm still going through a million different stages of recovery. Like you think, oh, binge eating, I recovered, arrived. There's so many stages that I'm going through. We could talk about that later if there's time. But I
Yeah.
think that the ultimate, what you really want to achieve for recovery from any of this is to really understand that you are worthy. The fact that God in his infinite wisdom decided to put you here on this earth, the fact that you're here is proof enough of your worth. And you have to understand that
Amen.
you are a child of God and you are the heir of a king. And
Yeah.
you have to know who you are and what your significance is. And once you understand what your purpose is, in life. And then you can really know your worth. Then you can rely on that. And instead of holding the hand of a cigarette or a porn magazine or a cookie or whatever you think you need, you hold God's hand. And you understand that you are under his wing. And if you are not a God person, whatever the universe, your higher power, Jesus, whatever that means to you, then whatever that is to you, like put that in and really connect with that, because that's what it's all about. There
And
is
it's
nothing
so
that's
well.
going to make you feel better. It's just not.
That was just so beautifully said. And it's true. Like, nobody's here on accident. Like, you were put here for a reason and you have a purpose. And your job is to figure that purpose out.
Because nobody could do that thing. Whatever your purpose is, nobody could do that like you can.
That's
nobody.
So that was your first step for recovery, really, was getting in touch. For you, it was God. And for me too, would be my go-to. But for some people, it might just be the universe or breath work or something like that. But getting in touch with something that, or just realizing that you're here, you being here is like good enough.
And I think the other thing is, and I think people may disagree with me, but you got to go back and uncover how and why it started. Because when you're smaller, like, kids are really, really, really observant, but because they're not fully developed, their interpretation sucks. And they take whatever whether it's a pastor or a teacher or a big brother or the bully on the schoolyard or whoever it is, they say something to you and you're like, oh, 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 okay. I guess that's who I am. I guess that's what I stand for. I guess that's me. And you internalize that and you wear it like a big scarlet A for the rest of your life, like emblazoned on you, like, this is my identity. Like, how many people have you heard, oh no, I'm shy, or no, I can't do that, or oh no, I'm so bad at that. No, you're freaking not.
You hear
Somebody
that all
said
the
that to you
time.
when you were like 6. What do you mean?
Yeah. It is. I mean, if you go to therapy, the first thing I feel like they ask you is like, tell us about your childhood. That's the first thing.
Right.
That's really where it starts. I know with my nieces, I'm always telling them, you're so smart. You can do anything you want, and they'll say, well, I'm cute. And I'll be like, you are cute, but you're also beautiful, but it's also more important to be kind. So you're kind, pretty, like you're trying to, because I've realized that, yeah, things that are said to you can have a lasting impact.
And I love how you say very specific things about them. Not just, you're great, you're awesome, you're amazing, but no, you are beautiful, you are kind, you do like specific things, like, and then they can take those things and attach them. I'm kind. I don't do that to somebody else. I'm kind, and then they internalize that.
100%. Absolutely. So yeah, it's like you do what you can. So go back, uncover
Go back.
what could have, whatever it is for you, whatever issue, binging you have, uncover the
Right.
past.
Uncover the past. How did it start?
Mm-hmm.
How did you internalize it? And then you start thinking, what are your thought processes? So when you have to become super aware. And if you kind of turn up the volume and slow down the messages, like as you're in a binge, like I started, like as I'm in a binge, I'm like taking notes, what's going on in my head, because I never stopped to listen to the messages.
Right. And a lot of stuff is going on. So you were able to then go back and be like, oh my, so what were some of those messages, if you don't mind sharing them?
Some of those messages, and I have this in my book, I call it the dark voice, like
Okay.
this dark voice that rules you. And my dark voice would say something like, who do you think you are? You have time to sit and cook a healthy meal for yourself. You eat whatever's available and convenient and put it in your mouth and get on with things. Like this is really what went on in my head. And so when I would come in the door, if it wasn't like A, stapled to the counter, or B, have mold growing on it, it would go into my mouth. And like that would be, that would be the end of it, because I didn't think that I deserved to take the time to make something good for myself, or, sit down and have a leisurely dinner with my children, or I didn't think that that was part of my life. That just wasn't part of something that was for me.
Wow. And then what was the third step?
So, um, so then what I did was I devised this system, which I'm so excited. I'm looking to make it into a workbook, but
Ooh.
it's just like a page for each binge. And I actually have it here. So funny. Yeah, I do. I just made like one for myself.
Okay. Aw.
And so the questions are like, the first thing you do is you stop,
Mhm.
remember who you are. Like I was saying, remember who you like, straighten your crown and let's go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Hold God's hand for little fortitude instead of cake is fortitude. And then you ask yourself, what are you avoiding? What is it that you're avoiding?
Wow.
And then ask yourself, what are you really feeling? And I made a list of feelings that I do. Like, are you feeling anxious, stress overload, or do you just have unstructured time? Because I'm so used to being achieving. My daughter said this to me, which I didn't even realize. She goes, every time you have time to relax, you never give yourself time to relax. So you don't know what to do to relax. So you end up getting stressed during relax time because you don't
Smart
know what to
girl.
do.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
So and then it's like, what is the real truth about what you're feeling? What do you need? How would you feel after you ate? What's something you could do instead? Like there's like a whole bunch of. So then it sort of takes you through the process. But in order to get to this point, to be able to stop yourself when you want to go binge and to come and like do this is like, it could be light years from where somebody's from,
Yeah.
at where they are at this
Absolutely.
point. And what was so weird for me last night, I was working on this thing where like I had this project that I was supposed to do for like 6 months and I did not do it. And
Yeah.
last night I was like, I am going to staple myself to my desk until this is done. Like I am not getting up. There's like handcuffs around my ankles. I'm not moving.
Yeah.
So, and usually I'd do like type for 5 minutes and I'd be like in the kitchen, like eating, trying to like stabilize myself so that I could move on. And
Yeah.
it was so weird. I didn't even want to. And like as a knee jerk reaction, I would like go into the kitchen to like take a break. And then once I was there, I'm like, what the hell am I doing here? I just want to go back to work. Like I was like, who am I?
I know. It's a big step.
It's huge.
That's amazing. So when you were able to go through this process and you're still going through this recovery process, but you're on the right path and you recognize these things and you said, okay, it's time to help others. Um, you decided to write the book, Binge and Sprint.
Yeah. And it was, it's not easy to kind of put yourself out there because like I said, it is shameful. It is a shameful topic. And but I don't care how ridiculous or out of control I may look to some people. If I could save one person from going through this for as long as I did, like I am good. I am good.
Absolutely. And as God says, a part of our journey is to help others, to serve others as well. And that is you're tapping into that purpose and that mission. And maybe sometimes challenges are given to us so we can come out the other side and provide this gift to those who may be suffering that as well.
We rise by lifting others, right? Isn't that the saying?
100%. Absolutely. It is so true. So, I mean, that's just amazing. And people are going to be able to access this book. So let's talk about, it's going to be available after the first of the year.
I'm hoping so. So I'm in conversation now with like 3 different publishers,
Okay.
and so it's very very exciting, and so once we get down, whatever the process is, I'll probably know after Thanksgiving, I
Okay.
guess. when I hear back from people. I hope the people that I like me.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm sure you've got great energy, and you just, I'm sure everybody listening is like, oh my gosh, you just want to give you a hug. And you talking about something serious, but we had fun with it. You were joking around, and we were joking around, and if you guys have an issue, like, make light of it to help get through it, because laughter really can heal you so much more.
Yep.
Make an appropriate joke, do whatever kind of joke you want, but definitely laugh at yourself over the issues you have, and say you're ridiculous. So your book, when it is available, you'll find out more. But if you guys are interested in getting the book when it does come out, hopefully at the first of the year, you can go to her website, which is Binge and Sprint.
Yes, you go to bingeandsprint.com and just leave your name and your email, and I will email you as soon as it becomes available.
That's perfect. So yeah, I can't wait to read this book and to kind of hear more about your journey. And again, we were talking about, binge eating and overworking, but binging can be applied to so many different things in your life. So if there's anything you're doing in excess, because you're compensating for something, then this book is definitely going to be something that's for you. And just remember, none of us are perfect in our own eyes because of things that happened with society, but in God's eyes, or the universe's eyes, or whatever you believe, you are perfect. So just remember that before you let some jerk or bitch change your mood, because it all happens. We all run into the bitch at the grocery store, the bitch at the airport, the asshole. Like, it doesn't matter. Their issues probably have nothing to do with you, so that could be it. But Naomi Joseph, thank you so much for being my guest and having this fun conversation with us today.
Thank you so much. I had a great time, and I'm
Yay.
really feeling so honored and privileged to have been able to spend this time with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you, and I feel exactly the same. And is there any other place that people can find you that you'd want to direct people to? I know you have some other businesses. Maybe you want to talk about those. Where can we find you?
Sure. So I am going to be launching on Instagram, Binge and Sprint on Instagram, where you could look me up right now, Naomi Joseph, author.
Perfect.
And I have, as I said, I'm a speech therapist. I have feeding and swallowing disorders. I'm also a national vice president with Arbonne, which is a network marketing health and wellness company. And really a very big part of my recovery was their healthy living through their nutrition and learning about eating properly as fuel for your body, and
Yeah.
instead of so it's all a learning process. It's all a learning process. And just, if you're going to put on makeup and be gorgeous, be healthy.
Yes, it starts on the inside. This is very, very true. All right, Naomi, thank you so much. And you guys, all the links to everything, if you missed it, will be on the website nexttomadison.com under her episodes. You can find it there. Naomi Joseph, again, we are very grateful for you. And everybody listening on the treadmill, at home, in the bed, on the couch, walking, doing whatever you're doing. Thanks again for listening to another episode of Next to Madison. We'll see you guys next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your
Bye.
host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@nexttomadison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.